Welcome, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that really challenges a core idea in biology, the standard genetic code. We're going to unpack the, well, let's say, highly controversial work of the Russian scientist Peter Gariaev, specifically his theory of the linguistic-wave genome.
That's right. The mission here is to look at the sources suggesting our DNA isn't just a chemical instruction manual. It might function more like a language, capable of some pretty complex processing.
And the main source we're digging into, Gariaev's book, basically argues Francis Crick's famous triplet code model. Well, it's not wrong, but it's seriously incomplete.
Exactly. It treats DNA translation like it's purely mechanical, like a simple machine. Gariaev says that misses crucial, almost linguistic functions.
Okay, let's get into that. What's the specific flaw Gariaev sees? I mean, the ribosome is incredibly accurate when it translates DNA, or rather RNA, into proteins. So where's the supposed mechanical problem?
Well, the problem he highlights is ambiguity. He calls it homonymy in the genetic code. Now, we know the code has synonymy, that's redundancy, right? Multiple codons, these three-letter genetic words, can code for the same amino acid. That's like a safety feature.
But redundancy makes sense. But homonymy, like words that sound the same but mean different things.
Precisely. Gariaev points out that if you look at just the first two nucleotides of a codon, the doublet, it can sometimes ambiguously point to two different amino acids or even a stop signal. His key example is the U family doublet. It's involved in coding for phenylalanine and leucine.
Okay, wait. If that ambiguity exists, UU, meaning potentially two different things, and if the ribosome just read the first two letters mechanically, wouldn't it make constant catastrophic errors?
That's exactly his point. If it were purely mechanical, based only on the doublet, it would lead to errors. So the protein-making machinery must have a way to figure out the correct meaning.
How then? How does it know which amino acid to actually grab?
The mechanism can't be just simple chemistry or mechanics, Gariaev argues. It has to use what he calls a linguistic mechanism. Think about understanding a homonym in English, like bat, the animal, or the baseball equipment. You need the whole sentence, the context.
Ah, I see. So the ribosome needs context, too.
Yes. Gariaev proposes the ribosomal system has to somehow scan and, in a sense, comprehend the entire mRNA strand, the whole genetic message or text. Only by understanding the context can it correctly assign meaning to that ambiguous doublet.
So it's not just reading code, it's interpreting it.
Interpreting, exactly. Which implies the genome isn't just a passive blueprint. It operates more like a quasi-intelligent system. He even calls it a quantum biocomputer.
A quantum biocomputer.
Yeah.
Okay, that really escalates things. So if context is the key, how does Gariaev say the genome processes that context? This is where the wave part comes in, right? The linguistic-wave genome.
Yes, precisely. He connects the linguistic nature to wave physics. He argues the genome, especially all that DNA we used to call junk DNA, which is most of it in complex organisms. Well, that DNA operates using principles from quantum physics.
Like what specifically?
Things like bioholography, the idea that information is distributed throughout the DNA, like a hologram, and quantum non-locality.
Non-locality. That's the spooky action at a distance thing. Instant connection.
Right. The idea that parts of the system can be instantaneously connected, informationally, regardless of physical distance. These wave properties, he argues, allow the genome to manage information and regulate the organism holistically.
Okay, let's pause here because this is where things get really controversial and frankly hard for mainstream science to accept. Gariaev's team claimed experimental proof of this. They talked about remote wave transmission of genetic information, achieving things like organ regeneration. How did they claim this worked? Sending genetic info via waves over kilometers.
Yes, that's the most radical claim and the one that draws most skepticism. They reported experiments where they claimed to capture wave information, like a blueprint, from healthy genetic material. They then used specialized lasers, they said, to amplify the signal and transmit it over significant distances, many kilometers, according to their papers.
And the target, what happened there?
The claim was, for example, that they could induce pancreas regeneration in animals with damaged organs just by beaming this information at them. No physical contact, just the wave transmission. It fundamentally suggests that information carried by waves is potentially more primary than the chemical molecules themselves in biological regulation.
Wow, okay, and it's a big if for many, but if this model holds any water, the implications are just staggering. What kind of applications did Gariaev envision?
Oh, the list is dramatic. Things like distant healing without surgery, complete regeneration of damaged or diseased organs using stored biological wave information, even significant extension of human lifespan by correcting genetic information fields. And as mentioned, maybe even a new basis for quantum computing using biological structures.
It really reframes how we might think about biology. We know, for instance, that the complexity of an organism, say, us versus a worm, doesn't really correlate with the number of protein-coding genes.
Yeah.
Humans have maybe 20,000 genes, roughly the same as some much simpler organisms, but we have vastly more of that non-coding DNA, up to 98% of our genome.
Exactly. And Gariev's work suggests that's where the complexity lies, not just in the parts list the proteins, but in the sophisticated regulation, the control systems. He argues that regulation depends on these high-level linguistic and wave functions, operating across the whole genome, reading context, managing the whole show.
It paints a picture of the genome as something much more active and, well, intelligent than just a static library of instructions.
Indeed. It suggests the genome is constantly reading, interpreting, and perhaps even writing or editing based on context.
Which leaves us with a really provocative thought for you to consider. If the genome acts like a quasi-intelligent biocomputer, reading texts, understanding context, making these sophisticated choices, does that fundamentally change how we should view evolution? Could it mean it's not just a purely blind, random Darwinian process, maybe something more like programmed adaptation, involving a level of genomic intention?